Let's turn this junk into a race transmission. Hang in there.
I'd say it's a nut job.
So if you've seen my video on the transmission I run in my Galaxy, it's a high tire 4-speed. It is a real deal, legit racing 4-speed. It is not a factory transmission. One of the things you would notice watching that video is that the gears in my high tower are much thicker, much beefier. They're really massive gears, and you'll notice in these they are not. But before they had those kind of transmissions, guys in the 50s and 60s, maybe even into the 70s and 80s, would take these and do a modification that they refer to as slick shifting them. We're going to take this one and we're going to turn it into a race style transmission that you can shift like butter, no lift shift, bang gears, and it will live on the street without a problem. It'll live for a little while on the track, but not long. Technology has changed. Let's get into this and let me tell you what we're working with. So this old transmission here was actually freebie. It was given to me. Got nothing in it, and I don't know nothing about it. So it's perfect for what we're going to do. So first off and foremost, before we get into this, so where this modification comes from is, again, back before race transmissions, people used to do things they called slick shifting their transmissions. And I'll get into how that's done in a minute. And they worked, and people won races with them. I don't think you would want to do that for a true race car. Now, you could for a little while if you just had to get through a race. You know, tire technology has changed since the 70s. Track technology, track prep has changed since then. A lot has changed. Things stick a lot harder now than they used to. Back in the 50s, 60s, and in the 70s, when this was a popular thing to do, most everybody was going to spin a little bit when they launched. Nobody was going to dead hook and just grab. Contrary to popular belief, horsepower does not break transmissions. Weight breaks transmissions. Think about your arm being extended all the way out and 5 pounds on it, or 5 pounds in your hand with a string on it, and you let go of it and that 5 pounds pulls on it, versus 50 pounds in there with a string and you let go and that 50 pounds drops with it. The weight would break your arm. Not the amount of power would break it. So dead hooking will break a transmission like this eventually if you run it on a track all the time. Now on the street, let's face it, most people on the street will never get enough traction to break one of these. Eventually, yeah, you may break it. So don't look at this as a modification you're going to do and have the baddest thing on the planet for the rest of your life. This is something you would do for one of two reasons. One, you've got a play toy and you just want to go out there, bang gears, red light to red light, and have a little fun. Or two, you have legit, like a stick shift race car, your transmission's broke, you've got a points race or a money race or something you got to be to in like 2 days or the next day, and there's no time to get your legit race transmission repaired or get the parts for it to repair it yourself, and you've got to be there to have a shot at your point standings or whatever it may be. You would do something like this because chances are it'll live through a few races. It may even live through a full season, depending on you, the driver. So let's get into this thing. All right, let's crack it open. I've never had the top off of this transmission. Well, it's dirty, but I don't see anything broken. She does have a lot of gear oil in her. So we're going to have to dump all that out. But yeah, I don't see anything. I don't see anything broken. These pieces right here that you see these straight gears on, right here, these are sliders. That's what it slides between gears on. That's the part that we will be modifying. That's what you modify to make a transmission shift smoother at high RPMs. And if you've never seen inside of one of these little things here are your synchronizers. You'll see them better once we pull everything out of here. And just so there's no confusion, the synchronizers will be going away. So basically, as you upshift, you can bang it right in the next gear. But when you downshift, you either don't, or you do what a lot of people have forgotten, and it's called a rev match. You'll have to bring your RPMs up a little bit to bang it back in gear. It does make it a little more aggravating to street drive, but it gives you that ability to bang the gears super quick. And that's what you're after ultimately with a race style transmission, is to be able to bang through the gears as quickly as humanly possible. If you watch videos of that Galaxy, I don't know if there's an automatic out there that can shift as fast as that car. That car really does shift quickly. Now we can make this one close to that with a few tricks. One is modifying these sliders, getting rid of the synchros, and another is find us a shifter that we can modify or buy a shifter that is a short throw style shifter. Now, why am I doing this? Two reasons. One, for your entertainment. That's probably the most important reason, right? Two is I have a 67 F100 out there that eventually we'll be doing a build series on. And we're going to build the world's cheapest F100 and build kind of a sleeper out of it. I hate to use that term because it's overused, but we're going to build a little street hot rod out of that truck, and we're going to do it for absolutely no money, basically. And when we're done, we're going to have the world's cheapest F100. Now, to do that, we got to have stuff to work with, and this transmission was free. Therefore, it was priced perfectly, whether this was what I was after or not. All right, now I would really like for this to be a one-part video. Two parts don't do so well. That all depends on how well y'all listen. Set the tail housing aside. This one looks to be in pretty good shape. So I think this is going to be a good candidate. So far, we have not seen anything in it that would suggest that this would not be a viable candidate for rebuild. Or in our case, build. It looks as though everything is okay so far, but we'll know more once we get all the gears and everything out of it. And then I'll show you exactly what you're modifying when you take it apart. End of the day, there's not a whole lot to these transmissions. Just a few pieces. All right, so one of the first things we're going to do, if you look down in here, there's a little set screw right there. We want to take that out. It's a little one, so be careful and don't strip it. We'll get that little set screw out. I'm gonna take that out. After you get that out, you want to take something and reach in there and push on this rod right there. And you'll see it's coming out the back right here. Once it gets started, you should be able just to get a hold of it back here and pull it out. Just like this. Sorry guys, it's hard to work one-handed. That's your little shaft for your shift fork. You can do some finagling around right there and you can get that fork out. We'll do that in just a second. Actually, I'm going to slide the whole shaft forward and slide it up through there. We'll do that in just a second, but there's also one in the front up here. We wanted to do the exact same process. A little set screw. That shaft will slide out the front, and we'll take that fork out so we'll have the shift forks out of the way. That way when we take the snap ring off here and here, we're able to slide the gear set back, tilt it, and pull it out of the top of the transmission. Hence, top loader. All right, now be careful when you pull the shaft out of the end of this. It will come out of here, but there is needle bearings behind this. All right. Well, that's out. Now we can continue on with the rest of it. Okay, you can see the needle bearings right in there too. Don't worry about them. Let them fall out in the bottom of the case. If they fall out in the bottom of the case, at least you know where they are. And you can fish them out with a magnet. So don't even concern yourself with those needle bearings right at the moment. All right, you'll have to forgive me just a little bit. This really is one of those jobs that require two hands sometimes. So excuse the choppiness. But we got the front shaft out, same way we did the back shaft. Then you slide this off of the collar. You can roll it around, and you can take out your shift forks. You can either take them out like that, or you can leave them in and just let them fall in the bottom. Either way works, but it does require two hands because you got to slide it around till your shift fork aligns with the notch here, so that you can roll it around and get it off. It does require two hands to do that. All right, so sorry I didn't film it. Once you get your bearing off the back, there is a snap ring you got to take off, pull the bearing off the back. Once you do all that, you should be able to position your transmission in a way that you can turn it and everything will come right out the top of the transmission like so. Again, hence the name top loader. So your whole gear cluster just comes out the top of the transmission just like that. We're not too much worried about these secondary gears down in there right now. Right here is what we're after. We're after this main shaft and this gear cluster. Now as you take stuff apart, kind of remember which way it goes. It does help. You know, I tend to take it off and lay it face down how it comes off. There's also going to be some more snap rings here, but what we're after are these. These are the sliders. This is what we're after in here. This is what we're chasing. Chasing these sliders. And what we're going to do is modify these in such a way that we take off every other tooth. Take this one off, leave this one. Take this one off, leave this one. So on and so forth, so that these sliders have a more room to kind of engage together. By doing that, it allows us to no lift shift. It allows it to have more room. Think about it. If the gears are like this, the gears have to line up in order for them to go through. If they're like this, they have to be just right to go in. But if they're like this, they can just clunk, clunk, clunk. They can just go in there. And that's what we're after. So we'll modify these sliders. We'll also remove these synchros as well. We don't want these anymore. We're not after a synchronized transmission anymore. So the synchros go away. I've got one laying here. Here's a synchro. You can see what it is. These go away now. And we take off every other tooth on these to modify this so we can no lift shift. Exactly what it sounds like. We do that on both of them. This one here and this one back here. We ditch the synchros here and here. And then basically reverse the process, put it back together. Although we will go ahead and put probably new bearings in it just because. But everything looks good in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this case up really well. Get everything cleaned up so it's nice and clean. Maybe put some cast iron paint on it so it looks fresh. And we'll take these teeth right here and make every other one disappear. Is what we're going to do. So these synchros, these synchros have to line up. If we move these synchros out, see what I'm saying? I can manipulate the synchro so it's not in line, and it doesn't want to go in there. But with these synchros lined up, it slides in and out fine. So by removing these, there's not going to be that hang up right there if it's not perfect anymore, just like that. That hang up goes away. It's actually a lot easier than people give it credit for. Taking one of these transmissions apart and modifying them is not difficult. But again, I will say, if you look at these gears, they're not massively thick or heavy duty or anything. So when you do this, understand that you are basically living on borrowed time if you go to the racetrack with it. This is not meant to be a NHRA professional transmission. This is meant to get out on the street and have some fun on the streets with. And if you want to go to the track every once in a while, you can. This will give you an advantage on the street above the guy beside you that has a standard transmission, or even maybe possibly an automatic, depending on what he has. This will give you an advantage over him, so that now you can shift a lot faster and gain a lot of ground on them. Gonna make this thing a slick shifted transmission. Y'all hang in there. All right, so as I said, now that we've got the shaft out, right here, there's another one of these little snap rings. Actually, they use the same ones all the way through it. These things right here. There's another one right here. We'll pop that one off, and then we can take the slider off. We can start taking the synchronizers out, start pulling gears out. We basically can strip this down to just a bare shaft. At that time, we'll start the process of removing every other one of these teeth here and on this slider back here, and deleting teeth. Now, as an effort to keep these videos short enough to keep everybody's attention involved, I'm probably going to do, I'm definitely going to do this in two parts. We'll call this one the disassembly, and the next one will be the modification and reassembly of the transmission, because it really doesn't take long to do this. This is almost a real-time video, so 20-30 minutes you can strip one of these things down and have it ready to go. Now, out of all the stuff that I've got in this shop, one thing I do not have that I should invest in is a blasting cabinet. So I'm going to send the case and the tail shaft to a friend who has a blasting cabinet and let him just clean this case up. It's covered in gunk and mud and all kind of nastiness. Clean this case up, blast it, and we'll coat it with some cast iron paint if it needs it. It may clean up nice. I don't know. May clear coat it. I don't know what we'll do yet. We'll wait and see when we get it back. We'll send the case out and have the case cleaned. So then when the case comes back here, we will sit down and do part 2, and we will pull all the gears off the shaft. We will modify those sliders. We will put everything back together and reassemble this transmission and have a done slick shifted transmission. Now, as I said before, this is a modification that was very common 50s, 60s, and even to the 70s. Late 70s, it started becoming more of a less used thing because better transmissions started coming out. And 80s, 90s, stuff like that. By the 90s, it was probably about forgotten about because everybody was going to like G-force style transmissions, Jerichos, things of that nature. So it's one of those things where not a lot of people know about it. Even less people do it anymore because, well, let's face it. Any project you do is going to cost you one of two things, or possibly both. Anything you do is going to cost you money, or it's going to cost you time, or possibly sometimes even both. If you're racing on a budget or you're trying to build a hot rod on a budget, you have to be willing to do a trade. You have to kind of sometimes trade time for money. In this case, we'll trade our time and invest it into this transmission, which on the street will last. On a track, a while. So in this case, to build a budget vehicle, we will use our time here, save the money to put into a different aspect of the build, and we'll kind of trade out and back like that. In reality, I know there's a lot of people on here that will go, well, my time is worth more than that. It's just easier for me to go out and buy a transmission. And I understand that. But think of it this way. If you've got, I don't know, say you've got $600 and that's all the money you've got. And you look at it and you need tires and you need a transmission. Now, I know a transmission would cost more than that, but we're using it as an example. A transmission I can put my time into and build. I can't go out here and milk a rubber tree and start forming my own tires and do all that. So it's one of those things I kind of have to spend that money on tires. So now that makes it so if I spend the money on a transmission, then I can't get tires. But if I spend the money on tires, I can come back and do my own transmission, if you understand what I'm saying. So there you go. Come back on the next one. We will have a cleaned case. I'll pull these. If you want to know how to pull these out, these are actually very simple. Take this plug out, and right there's a dowel pin. Just drive that out, and that shaft comes out. You can take those out. They're very simple. There's really nothing to that, but we're not going to modify anything on those. So those can stay like they are, although they need to come out for the case to be cleaned. That's a whole nother thing. But we're going to send the case out, have the case blasted and cleaned. When the case comes back and it's ready to assemble, we'll do part 2, and we'll pull all these gears off this main shaft. We'll modify the sliders, the synchros, all that stuff, put all this back together, and then we'll show you the reverse process, which is literally the reverse of everything, putting it all back together, reassembling it, and having us a slick shifted transmission. I will do a part 2 as long as this part actually interests people. Let's be honest about it. YouTube pays me based off of people watching the videos. So if nobody watches this video and I see it's no interest to anybody, then there's no real reason for me to do a part 2. But if this video goes well and a lot of people watch it, then we definitely know we need to do a part 2, and we will do that. The time frame in which part 2 comes out will all be based upon how soon can we get our case back and all that stuff. So hang in there with me. I'm doing my best to put you guys out some good content, and along the way showing you some old school things that kind of get lost in time. I know there's going to be guys out there go, it ain't lost. We know all about that. We know. I understand that. But there are people watching this that has never heard of slick shifting a transmission. This is voodoo to them. And there's going to be guys out there that'll swear that this is garbage and it'll never work. Although there's a lot of big name racers that you know exactly who they are, and you know exactly how many times they've won world championships and buckets of money. They started out with a slick shifted transmission. I guarantee it. I know it because I've talked to some of them. All right, guys. So again, trying to keep this video 20 to 30 minute time frame. This one had a lot of talking because I've done a lot of explaining, or tried to do a lot of explaining on what the thought pattern was behind this and what it was. So when we come back to the next one, there'll be less talking and more work, because now you understand what we're doing. So now it's going to be nitty gritty. Let's get down to it. Let's slide these gears off. Let's modify stuff. Let's put it back together. Let's put this transmission back together, and let's give it the stamp of approval. And then as we move forward on some other projects, we'll get around to actually putting this in a vehicle and testing it out. That will come a lot later, because as I said before, we're doing this for that F100 project. I'm tinkering with stuff as I go along, and kind of having it so when I do get everything else out of the way, that we can come in here and possibly slam that truck together in like a weekend and have a really cool cruiser. The motor that's going to go in that truck is actually sitting right over here in this corner right here. The short block is the 390 that used to be in Legacy. So, but it's just a short block. So we'll have to do some heads and intake and stuff like that, but I've got plans. Y'all stay tuned. I hope the Lord blesses you more today than he did yesterday. God bless you to each and every one of you. Him be the glory. And guys, remember, if you have not hit that subscribe button, please do. And please share these videos and comment. I am, at the time I'm recording this, like 300 away from 10,000 subscribers. It would mean so much if we could get that 10,000 by the end of the year. I'd like to have it as a Christmas present, but you know what? I'm not going to be greedy. If we can get there by the end of the year, and the only way we can get there is you guys. You guys drive this channel. So God bless you. We'll see you on the next one.
I'd say it's a nut job.